Okay, so now we have to watch what we say. Right, I'll just mute all of you if you don't mind, just for the time being. And so we carry on. Welcome everybody again. So let's gather ourselves, our energy, and bring it to this point wherever we are, sitting down to our body. Bring our mind also into the present moment as much as we can, given that there is no absolute present moment, but at least not to start fishing in the past or the future, to let go of that and just be happy with breathing in and out and being aware of the sensations as we sit here now, wherever we are. Without that sense that there's something lacking. And as we sit like this and just be aware of our body and mind, we remember how, as living beings, we want happiness and don't want to suffer. And that's the case for everybody. And yet we are tormenting ourselves with many hopes and fears. It seems sometimes that's what life is about. Hopes, chasing after what we feel will fulfill us, and fears, trying to avoid that which we think will harm us or something that upsets us. Or feels like it is somehow threatening us. And these hopes and fears can take many forms. And there can also be a kind of a subtle sense of dissatisfaction. Unsatisfactoriness we can't quite pin down. Well, this is what it is to be in cyclic existence, unenlightened existence, under the power of ignorance and the disturbing emotions and the karmic effects of actions. There's a subtle or not so subtle unease, disturbance, you could say, within body and mind. And for some of us, there will have been distinctly disturbing experiences today and yesterday and recently, things that have upset our equilibrium, upset the peace of mind. However, we should not give up, we should not despair. We should remember that we also have actually within us a sense of being aware and knowing, a sense of just knowingness, a sense of calm, clarity, a sense of kindness also, a sense of openness. we have these glimpses sometimes. The more we allow our mind to settle and we stop running around so busily and allow the mind to rest, we may get glimpses of some tranquility beneath the surface of the tsunami-like body and mind. Tsunami in the sense constantly active, constantly busy, constantly creating a tamasha, getting embroiled in emotion, feelings, upsets, and so forth. So that we stop trusting ourselves, and we even stop trusting the world. We feel the world is a very dangerous place, which of course it is in a relative sense, of course. But we find it hard to enjoy any of our moments. We always need something to boost us. A book, a song, some entertainment to keep us going. Because it's too frightening to just be alone with ourselves and our monkey-like mind. But anyway, we do have this capacity to wake up out of this dreamlike, spacey, confused monkey mind atmosphere. This is what the teachings are helping us with, as well as to let go of this self-centeredness which makes us so vulnerable and preoccupied with ourselves and our own happiness, our own suffering, to the neglect of others. This is happening all the time. So preoccupied with our own problems, we sometimes completely neglect other people. So let's rejoice that we're here together to investigate one of the most extraordinary spiritual texts ever produced, which can help us to develop genuine freedom through the practice of compassion and wisdom, genuine opening of the heart towards others, which helps us to untie the knots of miserliness and fear and hope, the knots of aggression, of envy, pride, and so forth. How marvelous that we are able to investigate together a text which His Holiness the Dalai Lama has called a text that's been instrumental, totally essential for his development, especially for his development of compassion. So we can aspire that by investigating, listening, reflecting, meditating, discussing together, we generate tremendous positive energy together and really begin to benefit from this text, which has been inspiring practitioners for almost now 1300 years, since Shantideva lived in the 8th century. We will look at the 3rd chapter, continue with that, but before that, let's spend a few moments quietly together, being aware of the breath, remembering our motivation, remembering people we care for and wish to practice on behalf of, and just remembering the sadness, the sorrow of samsara, the tremendous pain and suffering that beings go through due to their unawareness, due to their ignorance, the lack of control over their minds. So you can either, spend time on the motivation, or simply rest the mind with the breath awareness. Take a break from the chattering mind. Thank you. So we are on chapter 3. The first 3 chapters are like a preparation for when Shantideva gets into the real meat of the text, which is talking about mindfulness and conscientiousness, enthusiasm, patience, meditation, and wisdom, and so forth. In the part of the second chapter, most of the second chapter was taken up with the third with the third of the 7-limb practice, the third limb of the 7-limb practice, which involves prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting the Buddhas to teach, requesting them not to pass away into nirvana, and then dedicating. So the third, or confession, there was a lot we discussed about that in chapter 2. Then we also, now in chapter 3, we have already looked at rejoicing, and we have looked at the requesting the Buddhas to shine the lamp of Dharma, to teach, not to pass away. And we've looked at the dedication. This is all done briefly at the beginning of chapter 3. So we have to understand how all of these 7 practices of the 7 limbs, from offering all the way up to the, from prostrating all the way up to the dedication, they all have their specific, results. Nothing is just random. All of them are directed towards, building up more and more and more and more positive potential, more and more positive consequences, so that, we keep on getting, you could say, in a sense, closer and closer to the goal of enlightenment, which is the goal of the Bodhisattva, to attain that sublime state of a Buddha, so that when we do work for others, we don't make too many, mistakes. We don't goof up. We can do it in a very smooth and very skillful way, as in an inconceivable way, if you like. The Buddha's activities are in some ways for us inconceivable, because their minds are inconceivable. Their abilities are, very, very difficult for us to understand. Anyway, for example, let's go through these 7 just to briefly remind ourselves why we have just looked at these 7 so-called limbs, or the 7-limb prayer, these 7 aspirations, the 7 practices. So with prostrations, we create the cause to eliminate arrogance and pride. And it has many other aspects as well. It's also used in the confession practice. It can help us build up a tremendous amount of positive energy, purificatory energy. It can purify many, many wrongdoings from countless, existences. It has, tremendous power to purify us and to create the cause for great strength and nobility and positive kind of fame, because it is helping us get rid of arrogance and pride. Offerings, of course, is connected with generosity. It creates the cause to be generous. So therefore, it creates the cause to not have to encounter poverty, tremendous, debilitating poverty, which can prevent us, of course, from then being able to do anything much worthwhile in our lives. If we have a lot of poverty, things become very difficult. So offering, even the mental offerings, create the cause to be generous, and to therefore create the cause to also receive from others, from the universe, what we need to be sustained. Then the third, by confessing, we don't let our negative deeds fester in our consciousness. We don't keep any secrets. We lay bare everything before the Buddhas and our teachers, and we purify it through very skillful practices. So we don't keep anything in the dark where it just becomes, festers and gets worse and leads to a, bigger and bigger, guilty sort of conscience. We purify, we confess, and we, purify. So that gets a huge burden off our minds, a huge weight off our chest to accept negativities, wrongdoings, and let them go, purify them, let them go, burn them up, acknowledge them, in order to get rid of them and to, as much as possible, aspire not to engage in those kind of actions. Again, why? Because they harm us. That's the only reason. That's the main reason. Why should we engage in actions that are only harming ourselves and others? So any of the 10 non-virtuous actions and their associates, it's just harming us. It's delaying our awakening. It's creating tremendous causes for pain and misery in samsara. It's not as though we don't already have enough problems. Why do we want to generate more problems? We don't need it. We need to purify all that and as much as possible not create new causes for suffering. Because what we want is the opposite, right? Okay, then we rejoice, because rejoicing has as a consequence the reduction of envy, jealousy, and creates the cause for success. By rejoicing in other people's goodness, their good qualities, all of the good things they do and have, we create the cause to also enjoy those things. Whereas by being envious and jealous, which creates such a negative, unhappy state of mind, we're just creating causes for the opposite. This is how the law of karma works. So we rejoice in our own goodness and good qualities, and in the good qualities, the goodness of others. Even if it's just mundane things, it helps our mind to be happy rather than jealous and competitive. So, if we've been trying so hard to get into a certain college, or for our son or daughter to get into dental school, and it hasn't worked, but our neighbor's son or daughter does get that, then instead of being unhappy, which we normally would be, let's face it, let's be honest, we learn to rejoice and be happy and share other people's happiness, share in other people's good fortune. This is not easy, is it? But we can practice that and learn to do it through practice, through mental training. And then you see everything can become a cause for us to, more and more things can become causes for us to develop happiness, joy, rather than the opposite. I mean, who wants to be miserably envious or jealous? It's such a waste of time, such a tragic waste of a precious human life to engage in those kind of emotions. So we practice the opposite, rejoicing. And we also rejoice in our own goodness, our own good deeds, so we can build up a healthy sense of self-confidence as well, which is important. Otherwise, we tend to wallow in misery and think of ourselves as so negative and bad. It's just another form of ego clinging, actually, building up that kind of identity of ourselves as bad and terrible. We can get caught up in that kind of identification and waste a lot of our time and other people's time complaining about how useless we are. It's a subtle and actually not so subtle form of, being very preoccupied with oneself, actually. And in those states, we do nothing to benefit others. So it's directly opposed to the Bodhisattva's way of life. Yeah. Yeah. So then after rejoicing, when we request the Buddhas to shine the lamp of Dharma, everyone bewildered in misery's gloom, the Shantideva puts it, then we are creating the cause for the Dharma to flourish in the world, for ourselves to also not be separated from the Dharma, life to life. Because at a certain point, you see, we might realize after some time, we might, if we create enough positive energy and are intelligent about it, we might just realize that meeting the Dharma and that the teachings of the Buddha, in this case, that's one of the most important things that's happened to us in this life. Actually, it's more important than wealth or getting married or having a son or daughter. Meeting the Dharma means we have the opportunity to close the door to suffering and to create the causes for lasting happiness, liberation, and enlightenment. So why wouldn't we want to create the causes for Dharma to flourish and for us to never be separated from it? You know, just stands to reason. So the fifth prayer is to pray for the Buddhas to teach, turn the wheel of Dharma. But the sixth is that which is actually the sixth verse of chapter 3, we beseech the conquerors not to pass away and to remain for countless eons. In other words, to come back again and again and again in the world as teachers, not to pass away into nirvana and leave us, not to leave the world in darkness, as verse number 6 puts it. Because although there may be a lot of, technology and artificial light in many places, we might say that those places are in darkness if all there is people who are acting out their disturbing emotions of greed and envy and, desire for temporary entertainment and pleasure. And from a dharmic point of view, that place is in darkness. So we might say that even, Las Vegas or other places are places of largely darkness. Anyway, that's a value judgment. I'm sure there's a lot of goodness in Las Vegas as well. So that creates the cause, you see, for us to keep on having the company of teachers. And the teachers, we remain connected not only with the Dharma, but with the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, with the Guru Buddhas, who will continue to guide us life to life. Yeah, they will remain with us. So this, all these, you see, practices have incredible beneficial results. So we can think about that. There's just so much positive potential and happy consequences that we're creating the causes for when we engage in these practices. So it's very skillful means. So we don't waste this precious life. From verse 7, and then verse 7 is dedicating. The seventh practice is actually dedicating. We dedicate so that the virtue, the positive energy, is not wasted, is not destroyed. It remains and takes us to the goal that we wish for. In this case, it's like he's dedicating that through all that I've done, may the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. That's the dedication. So, we usually dedicate for that, to become Buddhas, to be beneficial for others, all of that is, part of the dedication. So then that creates the cause to actually experience those things in the future. We dedicate it. It's like saving up money or energy to do something beneficial. You save it and you dedicate it towards that goal. So then you're able to fulfill that goal. Then from verse 8 onwards, the very beautiful verses of aspiration, where Shantideva is just inspiring us and himself by through these aspirational verses about what actually we wish to become for others. May I be the doctor, the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. May a rain of food and drink descend to clear away the pain of thirst and hunger. During the eon of famine, may I myself change into food and drink. So here, this accent on just being something beneficial for others in as many ways as possible, not just to be the doctor, but to be the medicine as well, or to provide it, to be the nurse if necessary. You know, everyone who is sick, one is expanding one's mind, expanding one's aspiration. You might say, Bodhisattvas make all these prayers, so how come there are still sick people in the world? You know, how come there isn't enough medicine in the world? Well, the point is we're creating the aspiration to create the positive energy to be a particular kind of person, a bodhisattva. It doesn't mean that there's some kind of magic that we can suddenly manifest and help everybody in the world, you know, to totally become free of all of their problems. Because that also depends, don't forget, on that person's, those people's karma. You have to have the karma to be helped, the karma to be benefited. That's something worth investigating. How many times organizations get together trying to solve the hunger of the world, you know, to eradicate certain sicknesses? It doesn't happen necessarily. It happens in certain areas, but not everywhere. Why? You know, why is it not successful in many places? Again and again, though many people have tried, much money has been pumped in, so much has been done, you know, try and alleviate sickness and poverty in some parts of the world. And there are many reasons, of course, why it doesn't happen. That could be there in very erudite theses and you know, reports. But the underlying reason, from Buddhist perspective, is the lack of merit, the lack of the good karma to be able to benefit from the help that others are trying to give, or to be only helped for a very, very brief period of time, and not to be able to sustain ourselves for long, you know. So it requires the positive karma to be able to be benefited. You know, some people benefit from medicine, some people don't. Why? There's many immediate reasons, but also deeper reasons from the Buddhist perspective. So of course, bodhisattvas want to help everyone. Of course, they want all famine and wars to end right away, you know, but they're not going to, are they? Because so many causes have been set in motion by people now, and due to past karma, we're suffering the results of what we have sown in the past. Even historically, we can see those things. But of course, Buddhism is speaking beyond just visible history. So deep into the past, we have created innumerable causes to suffer in various ways, including to suffer famine, terrible diseases, warfare, and so forth. This also means, actually indicates that in certain special cases where the karma is there, and where the bodhisattva is a high enough bodhisattva, then bodhisattvas could actually manifest. They could transform their bodies or whatever into food and drink and medicine and so forth to benefit others in many forms simultaneously, since it's said that the high-level bodhisattvas have extraordinary capacities, which most of us would consider science fiction. But we have to expand our minds to conceive that there could be more than just what we understand or what ordinary modern science can understand. Life may be much more, I don't know, not mysterious, but much deeper, more profound and amazing than what we imagine. Anyway, it is said, and you can read and think about these things. It is said that bodhisattvas at a certain stage can begin to manifest many, 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 many bodies in many, many forms to help others due to the power of their compassion and their wisdom. Extraordinary powers can be generated, which we would consider impossible. May I become an inexhaustible treasure for those who are poor and destitute. May I turn into all things they could need and be placed close beside them. Yeah. Think of the Bodhisattva who offered his body to the hungry tigress. Just totally offered his body. No problem. Happily did that so that she could eat, regain strength, and be able to feed her 5 cubs. So we're willing to turn into all things that could be needed by others. And I'm reminded of that verse because here it says, they could be put close beside them. Because in the story of in the Sutra of Golden Light, it says that when the Bodhisattva makes up his mind to offer his body to the starving tigress, he lies down very close beside her. But because she's so weak, she can't eat him. She can't kill him to eat him. So he has to get up and find a very, very old bamboo, part of a bamboo tree, bamboo stalk, the sharp to cut his own throat, and then lie down beside her so that she can lick up his blood and become strong and eat him until there's just bones left, bones and some clothes, which his brothers then to their great dismay find later. Anyway, so it's not enough just to wish to be something for someone, not enough to transform into something. One has to go right up to that person or people and be there for them. Not medicine here, whereas the medicine is needed in Ethiopia. One has to be there in Ethiopia. So anyway, the Bodhisattva aspires to be like that. Yeah. The source of all that people need. Verse 11, without any sense of a loss, I shall give up my body and enjoyments, as well as my virtues of the past, present, and future, for the sake of benefiting all. So one gives up one's body, like the Bodhisattva did for the tigress. One mentally offers all one's enjoyments, all one's goodness, all one's virtues that one has accumulated. One doesn't hold on. One is willing to let go of it for the sake of benefiting others. Withholding nothing, should give up everything without any sense of loss. And Pema Chodron here says, this is Shantideva's instruction for developing a refreshingly generous mind, the mind with the power to overcome clinging, the I want, the I need kind of mind, of being self-centered, self-absorbed. It's as close as we can come to giving up everything that's me or mine. So the journey to enlightenment, she says, involves letting go, shedding, not just collecting. It's a continual process of opening and surrender. Like taking off layer after layer of clothes until we're completely naked with nothing to hide. Now, surrender has to be genuine. We can't just pretend, take off our clothes and put them back on again when nobody's looking. You have to give everything. So there's a story which he gives, a very powerful story from the life of Naropa, the great Naropa, who was training with his guru Tilopa. And then that story is worth reading, but here the story is about Marpa, the translator who was a student of Naropa. Marpa was the guru of Milarepa, the great Tibetan yogi. So we were talking about the connection between Marpa and his guru, Naropa, who had been that Pandit at Nalanda, who went in search of his guru, Tilopa. Okay, so Marpa had gone to India to study with Naropa, okay? And he had a large amount of gold dust to present to his teacher as an offering. But he was about to return home, and he was holding a little bit of the gold dust back in order to, pay for his journey, and it might come in useful later and all of that. Naropa knew that Marpa was holding some gold back. So when Marpa ceremoniously offered this gold dust to his guru Naropa, he demanded that Marpa give him everything, all the gold, saying, do you think you can buy my teachings with your deception? Instead of being grateful, he was very tough on Marpa. So reluctantly, Marpa surrendered all of his gold dust that he'd collected. That was what one collected in those days, to offer to teachers, to receive teachings, as well as being useful in a mundane way too, I guess. So anyway, he surrendered all his gold dust, which Naropa then casually threw into the air. So imagine that, you collect all this gold dust and your guru just throws it into the air. And if he said, at that point, he said, what do I have need of gold? For me, everything is like gold. Anyway, this was a moment of tremendous shock and disbelief for Marpa, but also a moment of great opening, a great, realization for Marpa. He became an empty vessel and could then properly receive Naropa's blessings without reservations. So until he gave up everything, self-importance was blocking his way. So yeah, the Bodhisattva is ready to give everything. His whole body, his mind, his positive energy, his accumulated virtues, everything, without holding back, for the sake of giving, for the sake of benefiting all. So he vows to surrender the three main bases that we have of self-importance: attachment to our possessions, attachment to our body, and attachment to our merit. When we become spiritual, so-called spiritual people, we get attached to how much punya we're accumulating. That we don't want to give up. We feel we'd be letting go of something so precious as our punya, our merit. But that also the Bodhisattva is willing to share, to give away. Yeah. So this is giving up that clinging, that attachment we have towards ourselves, our possessions, our goodness. We would like to possess our goodness, and we wouldn't want to share it. But the Bodhisattva is wise enough and compassionate enough to know that actually they have an inexhaustible reservoir of goodness once they begin to understand emptiness and so forth. Then giving continuously is no problem for those bodhisattvas. So, usually we're afraid of losing things, breaking them, never getting enough. Being afraid of losing them. We're hooked to our possessions and to our bodies. We're hooked, really. So it triggers anxiety in us, of course, this attachment. For ordinary people like me, we don't want physical pain. You know, we're so fixated about our health, our appearance, you know, avoiding pain. Slightest discomfort makes us unhappy. You know, she gives the example that in the summer she hesitated to help a bird which was caught in a rose bush because she was afraid of being pricked by the thorns. Our body is a precious vessel, our ship for attaining enlightenment. But if we spend all of our time just painting the decks, we'll never leave port, and this brief opportunity will be lost. Moreover, our body, like everything else, is impermanent, prone to death and decay. So perhaps it's time to see what it is. Stop strengthening our attachment to it. According to some lamas, the easiest thing to give away is our possessions, but even that is very hard, right? Giving up attachment to our bodies, even more challenging. Letting go of our merit, even more difficult. Can you imagine willingly letting go of all your good fortune? Would you be able to let go of your good qualities, your pleasing circumstances, your comforts and prestige, you know, so that others could be happy? Could we do that? I don't think we could do it. We can't do it because we're holding on so tightly, which is why we need the wisdom of emptiness, seeing how everything is illusory-like, rainbow-like, lacking in inherent existence. We cling solidly to, very strongly to these solid bodies, solid possessions, solid merit. Yeah. Nirvana is attained by giving all. Nirvana is the objective of my striving. Everything therefore must be abandoned, and it is best to give it all to others. Bachelor's translation. By giving up all, sorrow is transcended. My mind will realize the sorrowless state. It's best that I now give everything to all beings in the same way as I shall at death. So death will come and we'll have to give up this body anyway, you know. So how much better to be ready to give it up now, you know? Why am I clinging on to it? You know? That was the reasoning of the Bodhisattva in the Sutra of Golden Light. His body has been clinging to, which has just deceived him again and again, you know, through death and being prone to sickness, old age, you know, impermanence. It's better to give it away to beings. Shantideva goes even further. I mean, this is very tough stuff. This is not any kind of new agey kind of spirituality here. He's saying, having given this body up for the pleasure of all living beings, by killing, abusing, and beating it, may they always do as they please. Although they may play with my body, make it a source of jest and reproach, because I've given it up to them. What is the use of holding it dear? We have to be careful there, don't we? At our level. Therefore, I shall let them do anything to it that does not cause them any harm. When anyone encounters me, may it never be meaningless for them. Pema Chodron has an interesting take on this, interesting commentary on this. And I'll read this and then we'll discuss together. When I first read these verses, she says, meaning verses 13 and 14 and 15 as well, I guess, she was appalled. I didn't want to consider going this far, and nor did I feel it wise to do so. From a Western perspective, this advice seems to feed right into the self-loathing so prevalent in our culture. But knowing that Shantideva's intention is always to support and encourage us, I looked past my initial aversion and discovered the wisdom of his words. This, I realized, was the approach of the civil rights workers in order to benefit not only African Americans, but also their oppressors. They were willing to put their bodies and feelings on the line. For the greater good, they were willing to enter into dangerous situations. Being the butt of every mockery was the least of it. They knew they would be beaten, insulted, and perhaps killed. This is an example of Bodhisattva wisdom and courage. Yet these were just ordinary people who had given birth to the Bodhi heart. These verses describe what many famous bodhisattvas were willing to go through. And then people like Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Aung San Suu Kyi, and Gandhi. It also describes the bravery of countless unsung heroes and heroines. Look at verse 15. Yeah. Therefore, I shall let them do anything to it that does not cause them any harm. When anyone encounters me, may it never be meaningless for them. Yeah. When someone beats or mocks us, they're not exactly strengthening healthy patterns. So from a bodhisattva's view, they are harming themselves more than us. Therefore, Shantideva says that sentient beings can do anything to him as long as it doesn't result in their own injury. There's a story of a Tibetan monk who wept when he remembered how the Chinese had tortured him in prison. And his listeners, of course, assumed the reason for his tears was the memory of his personal trauma. However, he wasn't crying for himself, he was crying for the Chinese, who, as a result of their cruelty, would reap such intense suffering in the future for themselves, due to the law of karma. So if we could maintain this long-range perspective, it wouldn't be so difficult to wish for our oppressors to stop creating their own pain. This approach takes some cultivating, but if we work with it, we will sow seeds of happiness for all concerned. Okay, so we can have some discussion now. I have to stop at 8 o'clock because I have a Zoom meeting at 8:15 for one of our centers, so I cannot avoid that, much as I might like to go on beyond 8 o'clock. So I'm allowing people to unmute yourselves. We can take some comments or feedback from people.
Kabirji, I have a question.
Who's this?
Ashwin.
Hi, Ashwin. Yeah.
Hi.
Please.
Yeah, so I was just thinking about that last verse about how high-level bodhisattva would allow someone to insult them, harm them, possibly something like what happened to Jesus.
Yes.
But then I was also thinking, like you said, wouldn't this cause very bad negative karma for the person who is harming you or insulting you? So should you not try to stop them in that case?
We did cover that just now, didn't we? He does say, I shall let them do anything to it that does not cause them any harm. So it's just like he's saying he's willing to accept suffering from others, but of course he hopes it's not going to cause them any harm through their creating negative karma. He's willing to not retaliate and be patient. But like the monk crying for the Chinese who are torturing him, of course, he's very upset if people are harming him in a way, that is going to obviously create negative karma for those people and therefore suffering for them. So it's like you're willing, you have given up yourself in the sense you're willing to be badly treated, but if that has to happen, it has to happen. But it's going to make a bodhisattva really unhappy and sad for the person mistreating them, because the bodhisattva knows the other person's going to suffer. So of course they don't needlessly, encourage the person to mistreat them, obviously. But in certain cases, bodhisattvas, gave up. I mean, the bodhisattva gave up the body to the hungry tigress. Tigresses eat flesh. Maybe the tigress did create some negative karma through eating up, killing and eating the, maybe the bodhisattva was dead already, but certainly, devouring greedily his dead body. But I think the bodhisattvas also pray. Their prayers are very powerful. They're able to also maybe reduce some of the karma that would accrue for the other being and take it upon themselves in that sense. Anyway, I agree with you. Yeah, bodhisattvas are not looking for circumstances where they can help other people create negative karma of harming them. No way, they wouldn't want to do that. Therefore, I shall not let them do anything to it, but I shall let them do anything to it that does not cause them any harm. When anyone encounters me, may it never be meaningless for them. So on the contrary, he's hoping that when beings have anything to do with him or her, may it be beneficial for that other being. Whenever they catch sight of me, let this not fail to bring them benefit, it says in the other translation. So let beings do to me whatever does not bring them injury. You see? So saying let them harm me and all this, that's to reduce one's own attachment to one's own body and comfort and so forth. But in reality, no bodhisattva would want another being to create terrible karma, by harming them, because they know that harming a bodhisattva or someone with great compassion is tremendously negative. It's highly, highly negative action because of the high status, spiritual status of a bodhisattva. So to harm them is extra negative karma.
Okay.
What else, folks? Just the scope and the breadth of his aspirations are extraordinary, aren't they? The point being made is we can also generate this kind of mind. It seems unlikely sometimes, doesn't it, when we're full of misery and envy, competitiveness, depression. But through practice, through creating the cause, we can get the result. I mean, think about how we are when we are very sick. We feel terrible, right? In certain sicknesses, we feel terrible, awful. Then through medicine and other, through rest, time, we become fit again, we can become strong again, we can take good food, good tonics, and really become so strong and fit again. That's on a mundane level, those things happen. Within a period of a few days or weeks, that could happen. So who's to say what could happen if we sincerely begin to train our mind in the way that these texts, these great beings are suggesting? Who knows? Right now, we're too afraid or too lazy to even begin, seriously. We almost read these things for, well, speaking of myself, for spiritual entertainment. Nice, it's nice to read. But when we've had enough, then we'll watch a movie on Netflix or something, which is less heavy, easier to digest, I guess the more we are convinced that samsara is unsatisfactory and full of suffering, the more we have faith in the law of karma and in the inevitability of death and so forth, and the preciousness of our human life, the more we deeply go into those topics, then the more eager we become to practice, which is, of course, the whole point of those 4 meditations, is to turn our mind powerfully towards the Dharma. Yes, Akshayji.
So, Kabirji, I just have a question. When you mentioned about attachment to possessions, merit, money, and I definitely I feel like I'm at a stage in my life where I'm just constantly, chasing money and trying to prove myself that I can do this entrepreneurially, or I wanna have a better family circumstances or better relationships, or be better towards keeping mental sanity for myself, and have emotional balance. But to be honest, I'm not happy with any of these attachments that I'm attached to, and I'm curious, because I feel like this is not what I should be running after, but I'm still running after every day. And how do I balance it in my current form of life that we're living in? Because we can't just meditate every day and not think about these things. So I don't know if I make sense.
Yeah, you're making sense. Yes, I just wanted you to give you time to say everything. Well, this is a quandary many of us are in, and in our modern lifestyle, and given that you are still a young person, there's tremendous pressure on a lot of young people, and in general anyway, to perform, to earn, to have lots of money, to have good marriage, to promote yourself, to be comfortable, to make enough money that so that you will have a buffer. And in the present state of uncertainty in the world, there's perhaps even more reliance that people are putting on things like money and relationships and pleasure, partly to avoid the pain, I think, also of properly thinking about all of the very challenging circumstances that we are in. You ask how to balance this. Well, you have to apply what the Dharma is saying, that look at these things. How long can they help you? Are they impermanent or not? What kind of satisfaction are they giving you? Are they a substitute for a sense of inner wealth and contentment? How much do these things that you are pursuing prevent you from actually ever slowing down and being happy and content with what you have? Do they not produce a sense of kind of continuous discontent, restlessness? It's okay for a while perhaps, but you have to know how much they can provide for you, what they can give you and what they can't give you. As the Beatles famously sang, money can't buy me love, We think it can, of course, because if we have lots of money, we may attract a certain kind of partner, but it can't really buy you the real love that we need, right? The heartfelt, long-lasting, genuine love, care, affection, Of course, it might provide you a good space in an old people's home when you're old, if you have enough money. But as the Beatles say, is it? I can't remember the words. Probably Sujit ji will tell me. I don't care so much for money. Money can't buy me love. Something like that. So we have to realize what money and fame and position can give us and what it can't give us. What are the limits? Where does real satisfaction lie? What is the source of real happiness? What is the source of suffering? Buddhism says it's the mind, state of your mind. You can be a millionaire on your own island, surrounded by beauty, beautiful people, beautiful things, and still be deeply unhappy. Because it depends on the mind. Because these things are superficial things. The main person we have to make friends with, in a sense, is ourselves. And then we can be friends with everyone, with the whole world. Does that make any sense?
Yes, sir.
Because you're young. Okay, you're young, right? You're probably not even, you're just around 30 or a bit more or a bit less, right? So,
Right.
It's obvious to have that wish for worldly success, and it's even sanctified in the Hindu scriptures that this is the time of life when you should be pursuing pleasure and wealth, But don't wait too long before you decide to, spend more time on meditation, because who knows how long you have, and how long your good fortune, your good worldly fortune lasts. Who knows? Things can change very rapidly in this world, very rapidly, based on events that may be happening elsewhere, events in Ukraine or, events wherever. We're in a very highly polarized, disturbed, and fractured world. So we never know how long economic stability will last, when we will be prone to some new disease. We don't know when our beloved parent or friend or brother or sister may pass away. And at that time, what use is your money? When someone you love leaves you or passes away, what use is your money, your wealth, your status? At that time, don't we need something more internal, some strength, some inner strength? This is something to think about. Sorry, I'm not lecturing. I hope I don't sound like a lecturer.
Not at all, sir.
We have to investigate this. What will make us happy? What will sustain us when our favorite person dies, When someone we deeply love dies, or even a pet animal. Some people, of course, have deep, deep connection with their pets, which are like real friends and lovers to them. People, I know someone who, they don't have children, and when their dog of, 13, 14 years passed away, it's devastating for them. It's like losing their child, So at that point, what helps, Or what helps if the stock market or, whatever, your investments crash? What happens if someone cheats you, of a lot of your money? What is your reaction going to be? Because these things can be lost, right? They can be stolen. There can be big, crashes. So Shantideva's advice, the Buddhist advice is make friends with the person who can help you forever, which is your own mind. Because your own mind is going to last forever, much longer than, your mind will last much longer than, to a point where there's no memory of anything called dollars or yen or rupees. So, your mind will go on forever. So we owe a duty to that mind to create causes for happiness, genuine causes for happiness. And that's not lying in money or wealth or investments or being the CEO of this or that. Very good question. I mean, it's a very important question, very important point, because we do lay so much store in material things. And of course, we do need material things to a certain extent. But we're so infatuated and so caught up in it, get so involved with it, that I think the human factor often goes out the window. You know what I mean? So we're working till long hours at night. And if we're married or in a relationship, we come back home, and then what kind of real company or energy can we give to somebody when we've been slaving away all day making money, or whatever it is we're supposed to do at the office? How much genuine love and compassion and wisdom can we offer to our partner when we leave home early and come back late, where technology becomes more important than the human factor? This is the great danger. But I'm speaking as a very kind of dinosaur type person, who was born in the middle of the 20th century. So for people like you, I'm a dinosaur. And what I'm saying may sound very strange, but I'm not the believer in technology that's a lot of young people and the government appears to be. I'm not a great believer in the redeeming features of technology. Given the state of the human mind, I think technology is very dangerous.
Mm.
I wouldn't want to give up Zoom right now because it is helpful and stuff like that, and my, my clock and my, my smartphone. But to be honest, if it wasn't needed so much for our work nowadays, I could let go of my smartphone tomorrow. And there would be a short period of grief or maybe adjustment, but it wouldn't last long. I have plenty of books and other things to keep me company, and people. So I think, anyway, sorry, I'm ranting now about technology. But my point is, external things and technology is very amazing. I'm not saying it's not amazing, it's unbelievable. But I think it's very dangerous. Very dangerous. Now, what we're doing with it. Because we're so damn intelligent. Lots of geniuses around who are refining technology to such an extent that, it's becoming the master. We're not the master anymore.
So we have to adapt to it, essentially, or we will be
That's
forgotten.
what a late 20th century or early 21st century person will say. But I'll say no. Yeah, in one level we have to adapt, but in another way we have to also let go and be very, very, very cautious of it. And not be so much the slave of it. But every 10 seconds I have to look at the messages on my WhatsApp or something, like some people do.
Right. Well, I'm one of those.
That's very painful. That's a very painful way to live, I think. But as I said, I'm biased. I'm a mid-20th century product. People who are born even earlier, they would be, they would be outrageous for us. But yeah, your question is a deeply, deeply important one. And I think young people need to be reminded that these worldly things that they feel they need for their security and happiness, yes, they are necessary, but we need to be very careful with them and realize their limitations. They can't give us lasting satisfaction. They can't give us the sense of belonging and kindness and affection that we get from a good mother or grandparent or whatever. They can't give us that. They can't give us spiritual strength. They can't give us are the means to be liberated or to be enlightened, which is our potential, according to the Buddha. And they can't even ensure that we have even happiness and contentment in this one short life. They can make us even more competitive and, ill at ease. Because the more we earn, the more we get, then there's also corresponding, isn't there, some kind of fear of loss, fear of things changing. You may have a beautiful partner, but then we worry, how long can I keep this partner? How long will it last? All of that. But once we develop strong inner qualities, and compassion and wisdom and so forth, perseverance, patience, these are long-lasting friends which don't let us down. But we have to check. I may be talking nonsense. You have to check for yourself based on studying authentic literature, using your own intelligence, thinking about it, discussing it with people who have that interest. Yeah. Okay, where are we? Couple more minutes only. Then I really have to stop. I need to catch my breath before this meeting I have. Not a meeting I'm looking forward to necessarily, but I have to engage in it. One of my responsibilities. But any quick, where are we? We have 2 minutes.
Kabirji, both Vishad and Anushri had questions. I can see it from the demo.
Sure. Yeah, but what to do? I'm sure they can answer it themselves, actually. They're both highly intelligent. And if they read and study a bit, they'll find the answer very easily. They're both brilliant. They're both geniuses.
Naveen, you have a clairvoyant mind. Kabirji.
I don't have a question. I really don't have a question.
Without
Yeah,
looking-
I don't.
Even Anushri is out of questions today. And Vishad can, if he's really desperate, can send me a personal WhatsApp message if he is desperate. But I don't think he is, because another highly intelligent geezer who knows how to analyze and
No, but we want to benefit from their question, Kabirji. That's fine.
But time is the enemy or the friend, and it's 1 minute to go. So it's just time for me to say we should dedicate together, that we understand more and more what Shantideva is saying, and find courage. So important, courage and inspiration within ourselves, based also on inspiration in the great teachers and beings and bodhisattvas, and texts like this one can give us inspiration. And so we need to generate that. And may we have long and healthy lives, never be separated from these teachings and from authentic teachers who can pass it on properly, not like my ridiculous version, but genuine teachers. So may that be happen for us. And as Shantideva says, the last verse we looked at, whoever I relate with, may it never be meaningless for them. May it always be meaningless for people, even if they just catch a glimpse of me. Anyone catches a glimpse of me or hears our name, may it benefit them. That's the way to create the cause, you see, be a great benefit for others, even when you don't realize you are being beneficial. Your name, your memory, your image to someone in their mind can become beneficial for them through your prayers, through your good heart. So may we all develop good, courageous heart, not give up, forgive each other for our faults and shortcomings, and be happy as well. We don't need to be miserable just because the world is in turmoil. We have a duty to smile and help others to smile. It's very important. And with our own faces, and not just with the, what are they called? Emojis, emoticons. They're nice too, but may we learn to smile with our extraordinary human faces, which have so many muscles. Yeah, okay. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to join in. It's very
Thank you.
encouraging. Take care, and we'll see some of you, I hope, tomorrow from Tushita, I hope. Yeah. Thank you.
Kabirji. Thank you,
very much.
everyone.
Thank you, Kabirji.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Kabirji.
And
Thank you, sir.
Khurana Saab, our oldest member, Khurana ji. Thank you. Thank you. Good night. Yeah, you'll all have to leave soon because in 12 minutes other people will be arriving. So I'm not going to be talking. I'm going to be getting some sustenance for myself.
Just remember to stop the recording, Kabirji.
I'll stop the recording. Thank you for
Bye,
reminding me.
Kabirji.
What would we do without Nivita ji?